What I would highly recommend when you're having a cheese plate is to cover all the milks. You must have a cow's milk, a sheep's milk, a goat's milk, and it depending on if it's at the beginning of the meal or at the end of the meal, I would do a blue cheese, especially if it would be the end of the meal. The most important thing is to understand the strengths of the cheese. As an appetizer, you do not want cheeses that are going to overcome what's coming next. So you go with lighter textures, lighter flavors. If it's at the end of the meal, you must use cheeses with a little more power, a little more texture, more of a statement. And you can also use condiments at that time to balance things. So let's go into the first category, which is my favorite. I'm a fanatic about goat cheeses. Here you have two goat cheeses. One of them is what we call farmhouse. And the French are very specific about farmhouse. What this means is that only one farmer, only his goats, only his pastures, everything is handmade, and the milk is never heated. As you can see, I cut you a lateral cut to show you what the inside looks like. The rind on this is natural rind. It's covered with a little bit of cinder and natural mold, as you can see, and it's all edible. What one must know is how to cut it. I would never cut a piece where one would eat all the rind first, because the power of the cheese is on the exterior. So it's very important to cut it on a wedge and distribute the cheese evenly. It is important for you to understand that the inner parts are milder, and the exterior where the rind is, it's where the power is. So it's pretty smart to taste the inside first and work towards the rind. And if you like all the flavors, to get the best balance is to cut a piece like this, where you have a little bit of the rind and also most of the inside. And this is pretty much the rule with all cheeses, especially like this brie right here. The only time the rule is not important is, for example, this beautiful young goat cheese that comes from near Languedoc, France. It's called Bleu Cheeses, and it's covered with wild raspberry leaves. This is a cheese, it really doesn't matter where you cut from, because everything is pretty much the same. It doesn't have a rind. With the goat cheese, I thought of certain condiments. Here are two that I thought would be great with goat cheese. I like citrus, a little bit of acid with goat cheese. What I have here is grapefruit marmalade. This would work really well with the fresh goat cheese. This is acacia flower marmalade. This will be amazing also with the goat cheeses. Next cheese I usually present is sheep's milk. This is Mountain Shepherd from Vermont. You can see that it's kind of yellowy and sweaty a little bit. So it's always good to clean that film, because if you leave it there a long time, it will alter the flavor. And you'll see that I'm not really taking that much, and we've really wiped it away. So what I would serve with this is membrillo. Membrillo is a quince paste. There's a Spanish version that's with a little bit of hints of cinnamon. There is the Italian version, which we call cenepata or cotognata. And the traditional way to eat this cheese is to have a piece of the Mountain Shepherd, which is savory, and then have the cotognata or the membrillo, which is sweet, and then take a bite of roasted almonds, walnuts, which is again savory. You've gone savory, sweet, savory, and then finish with a beautiful glass of maybe a 40, 50-year-old sherry, a very dry sherry, which has both worlds. So what you're doing, you're really teasing your palate. You're going back and forth. The next cheese I would use is cow's milk, and I brought you guys three options. We have a beautiful cheddar, the Montgomery cheddar from Somerset, England. We buy this from Neal's Yard Dairy. It's hand-selected by us. The other one is Comté, Le Fort from Marcel Petit. You can almost see the spots where they see these little dots. Those are calcifications of the proteins because the milk is so high in solids. And these are the cheeses that are the most in demand. If you ever had a fondue made with this and a glass of absinthe in that region, which is famous for, you will never forget it. And then the brie de meaux that we talked about briefly, it's the real brie. When you taste it, it'll be floury, mushroomy, and you can see it's not as thick. You can see the breakdown is, this is a brie that what we call it is unbalanced. It breaks down really quickly, so you really have to wash it so it doesn't go overboard. And the last one I brought you as a cow's milk is one of our friends, Parmigiano Reggiano. You would take the piece of Parmesan and you would chunk a couple of pieces. And what I usually do, here we bring about 4 different balsamicos, aceto balsamico, balsamic vinegars. This is a 20-year-old. So what I usually do, I tighten my hand. You can see you get a little pool, and I put 1 little drop. You can see it's very thick. So what I do is take a piece of Parmigiano. As it opens up, I take a little body shot of balsamic vinegar, and it's incredible. They kind of marry beautifully in your palate. The sweetness of the Parmigiano attaches to the sweet and sourness of the balsamic, and it's really fun to do this. What I usually use with these cheeses are, I start getting into a little bit of crackers or bread. These are little savory, almost like crostinis. They're delicious, and they will really not affect the flavor of the cheese. They're a great accompaniment. And here are some great condiments that I thought would go really well with the cow's milk cheeses, and also some with the sheep. This is a beautiful cherry preserve from the Pyrenees that would work with the sheep and the cow. This is from the Haute-Savoie, the Savoy Mountains, a pear preserve. This is a red pepper jelly that would be amazing with the Montgomery cheddar. Another one I think that would go really well, again, it's a confit d'oignon. It's basically an onion confit that would work with more pronounced flavored cheeses. It's kind of very savory at the same time, and it's also great with foie gras and pâtés. And the last level we were going to talk about is the blue cheese. And I brought you a beautiful blue cheese from Greensboro, Vermont. This is called Bailey Hazen. Matteo and Andy Keeler, friends of ours, make a beautiful blue cheese similar to the blue cheeses you will find in the Auvergne, Massif Central of France. And this is a cheese that would really enjoy. It's very even flavors, no up and downs, and it's always been very consistent because they do everything by hand. They have beautiful Ayrshire cows. And we go there about 2-3 times a year to visit and see how they're doing things. And I do a class at Boston University. I usually take my class to make cheese at Jasper Hill Farm. And I usually pair this with a beautiful honey and roasted walnuts. Here's the honey that I found in the Piemontese mountains. And there's nothing like a finish with a blue cheese, especially in the winter months. You sit down, you want something to warm you up, so a bite of the blue cheese, a beautiful honey, and some caramelized walnuts or roasted almonds, and perhaps a nice glass of single malt whiskey would be a great finish to a great cheese course.